Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
I need a smartphone with an awesome camera. Got anything to fit a new dad's budget?
Don't worry, you got this with Total Wireless. And now you can get $50 off on select phones $99 and up.
My relatives won't miss a thing.
Now you can focus on the important stuff, like diaper duty.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Now open in Miami. Limited time offer in 6/30/18. Available while supplies last. Porting required for a non-track phone brand. Offer only available at Total Wireless stores. Visit store for details.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very extra special. It's extra and it's special source material. Our opportunity to discuss the return of one of the most prolific teams in Marvel history, and that is the Fantastic Four. That's right. The Fantastic Four are back. We're going to celebrate that. And in order to do that tonight, I've brought in a guy you've heard on the podcast before. So Evan Bevins, welcome back to Source Material, my man.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So we wanted to get together for quite a while. I mean, me and you've been batting things back and forth about what to cover. I think originally the plan was for Squirrel Girl.
I'm always open for Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, buddy. And we just haven't had a time because not only you, but I think like 3 other people were like, okay, if you're talking Squirrel Girl, I've got to be in there. So we have not got anything really set in stone for that. But shoot, we were talking about that at least a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if I threw it at you, if you threw it at me, one or the other. I know I just had to get you on the podcast in some way, shape, or form. You came up to me and you said, we need to talk about Dan Slott's run on The Thing.
One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, give me an idea of why do you think this book fits so well?
Well, you've got, of course, Dan Slott's been writing Amazing Spider-Man for 10 years and just came off of that. I was thinking back about what we could talk about, and I go back to this because up until Squirrel Girl stole the spotlight, Ben Grimm, The Thing, was probably my favorite character. And this run that Dan Slott did was, I think, probably the closest he's been to writing Fantastic Four regularly until today.
We had the chance to talk about his swan song on Spider-Man a couple weeks back. And I've read Dan Slott's Spider-Man. Shoot, how long was he on that book? Did we say like 10 years?
Yeah, he wrote, he was there for one more day. He was part of the Brain Trust with Mark Waid and Bob Gale and some of them. Mm-hmm. And then gradually he just kind of took over.
Yeah, I started having Spider-Man on my pull list 2010. So it was definitely in the midst of most of his stories that he was bringing out for Spider-Man. And so I read Dan Slott on Spider-Man. It was great to to read him on his final issues with Threat Level Red and Go Down Swinging. That was a great story.
Awesome.
So then you told me, hey, Dan Slott did a run on The Thing. And I was like, okay, this ought to be interesting. Considering we have the new Fantastic Four issue that dropped, it was last week, on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And Dan Slott has taken over, or at least he's going to be the continuous writer on Fantastic Four, at least for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, right. Hopefully, as long as he was on Spider-Man.
Yeah, another 10 years. That'd be crazy. Right now, what we've got to do is we got to jump into the Wayback Machine, head back to, I think, 2006. It's an 8-issue series. We've got Dan Slott handles, I think he wrote every single one of these issues. I didn't see him take a break or anything like that.
No, he did all 8.
Here, this is 2006, so I want to kind of give everybody an idea of what's about to happen in the Marvel Universe. We've got 8 issues, so I'd assume it's monthly. And I know in the last issue, we have at least the preview for Civil War. Civil War is going to be happening. So I remember going through and seeing the actual ad for, hey, whose side are you on? So this is pre-Civil War, which is one of the bigger Marvel events in Marvel's history there. So, but let's talk about fun and games. So The Thing, where we're at now, in the Thing's life. I mean, Evan, can you give us an idea? I know you said you're a huge fan of this character. Can you give us an idea going into the beginning of this series where Ben Grimm's at in his life with the Fantastic Four, with his love life, which is rather prominent throughout this series. What's your best summary of what we got going into Fun and Games?
Well, if I'm remembering right, this kind of ran parallel with Mark Waid's run on Fantastic Four. And one of the things he did in there was he kind of let some of the members split out on their own with the money that the Fantastic Four made from patents and things like that. When this series starts out, you've got Ben Grimm living in a penthouse, dating a movie star, and kind of not at first doesn't seem like the same old Ben Grimm we've seen over the years.
Give us an idea of what the same old Ben Grimm's like.
Ben Grimm's kind of like the Rodney Dangerfield of Marvel. He gets no respect. I mean, he's strong, but he always gets beaten by the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of, almost number 4 on the team. You've got Reed and Sue, the power couple. Reed's the Mr. Fantastic, the resident genius of the Marvel Universe. Invisible Woman's the heart of the team once you get past some of those early 60s stories. You got the Torch, who's literally flamboyant, and he's the brother. And then there's the Thing, the best friend, the sort of uncle, but he never seems to, his luck never seems to work out the way he wants it to. I mean, everybody else got these powers and they're stars, and he's the monster. He always has to take the beatings, is always getting beat up by the Hulk, almost cured, and then something happens. Nobody else needs to be cured of their powers. They can look how they want to, and Ben's kind of, they had that moment in the Fantastic Four movie, the original wide release one where Michael Chiklis played him, where he finally got cured and he had to give up the power, give that up to save his friends. But every time, and you see this throughout this series, Ben Grimm's the guy who's going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
No matter what it costs him, no matter how much he gets dumped on. One of my favorite series,
Absolutely.
Marvel 2-in-1 back in the 70s. Steve Gerber, that created Howard the Duck, started out writing it, and it's basically Marvel team up with the Thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second issue, they do a riff on Superman, where this young alien child is sent to Earth, except him took him 20 years to get here, and he grows up physically. But when he comes out of his ship, he's got the mind of a toddler. And the Thing and Namor team up, and they protect him from these villains. And the Namor's like, well, I'm back to Atlantis. So Ben Grimm all of a sudden has a, toddler with the body of a 22-year-old. and super strength and all this stuff. And how many other people outside of maybe Spider-Man, how many other heroes do you know that would take that in stride?
Yeah.
But Ben does. He's just the guy you can count on. And I think Dan Slott does an awesome job on the first page setting up the series when he has the Thing introduce himself as the Kevin Bacon of the superhero set.
That's the truth, too. It is, because you can tie him to just about anybody. It's funny how that is. But now he's coming to some money here in this series. You were talking about how he's cashed in some patents, and this is a side of the Thing that he's still got a heart of gold, but
right.
It's a thing that's I think in this first little bit where they're fighting, what is his name? Cauldron the Scalding Man. What an odd villain. My goodness. Yeah. I've never seen anything like this. So yeah, when he's fighting that, and then there's some collateral damage, I guess you'd say, and somebody's getting ready to sue him, and Ben's like, oh, I'll just write you a check. And that theme's played out a lot through this series about how rich he is. He's, just like you said, he's got a movie star girlfriend by the name of Carlotta. Oh my goodness.
LaRosa.
Okay. Yeah. So she's like this famous actress who's, she's on the arm of the Thing. And I guess let's talk about Alicia Masters and the Thing right now. Clearly they're not a thing. Any idea when that occurred? Have they always been on and off, or?
Well, there was that weird time in the 80s and 90s when Alicia actually married the Human Torch.
That's right. Oh, man. And if they weren't at odds enough.
Right. Except, as we eventually learned, that wasn't Alicia, that was a Skrull.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so I'm not sure. I was away from the Fantastic Four a little while until Mark Waid came into the picture, and so I don't think he and Alicia had ever really gotten back together, but they'd also never totally gotten out of each other's orbit either. I mean, you see in the early issues here, they're still, you know, friends and connected, and Ben would probably like that to be a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. So this first arc, Fun and Games, we have an appearance by the villainous Arcade. Give us an idea who Arcade is, what his hand, his villainous hand brings to the Marvel Universe.
He is an assassin, but he's one with a flair for the dramatic and the absurd. He doesn't just take somebody out; he puts them through a series of games in what's usually called Murder World.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times he pops up with the X-Men, but he's a guy you bring in for all kinds of weird storylines. Actually, I remember the first time I saw Arcade wasn't in a comic; it was in a Fantastic Four module for the old TSR Marvel role-playing game.
But anyway, yeah, so Arcade is this, you know, he's this crazy guy. He's going to kill you with some games. And it ends up that I think Ben and Carlotta get invited to this big shindig where all these millionaires and playboys, actresses, whatever, what have you, are at. And there is, turns out it's the Marvel equivalent of Martha Stewart is hosting the party.
Yeah.
And she unveils these new statues. Well, it turns out it's a big ploy. Arcade's got in there somehow and gassed all these rich denizens of the Marvel Universe. And also, I mean, Tony Stark was there, a former villain by the name of Constrictor, and a guy I didn't even know about, Nighthawk.
Is that his name? Nighthawk?
Tell me about Nighthawk.
Okay, well, short answer is Nighthawk started out as kind of a parody of Batman.
Okay, I can see that.
He's part of the Squadron Supreme, you know, the JLA
yes.
Marvel brings in every few years.
Yep.
But where I know Nighthawk from, you know, I was talking about Marvel 2-in-1. It's probably my favorite series. Right after that is the Defenders in the 70s and 80s. Read a lot of the essentials, and Nighthawk was the guy who always wanted the Defenders to be on the level of the Avengers, whereas Doctor Strange, the Hulk, Namor, they didn't care. But Nighthawk cared, daggone it. Didn't always work out well for him, but he tried.
And they said he was a villain as well at one point too, right?
Yeah, Squadron Supreme started out as villains, and are at least in one of the many versions of Squadron Supreme.
I'm recalling a little bit of that now as them being like the JLA analogs, because Hyperion was the Superman of the group. I can't. Is
Power
it Princess?
Princess?
Power Princess. I was going to call her Princess Power. Power Princess. That's right. Yeah, like I said, there's not only is the Thing there, but also a couple superheroes / former supervillains, and they get taken to this island after they're all gassed. They wake up on this island, and it's Arcade's Murderland, and we have Arcade with his trusty metal alloy Brynaki, which is this his? I assume this was his first appearance. I have no idea, but is this somebody that's showed up before?
He has, and I can't claim to have known this until I went back and was rereading it, because there are some references to Brynaki, however you say it, like Arcade finding him in a million pieces, and he keeps trying to get Arcade at one point to change the name to Mordillo Land.
That's right. Yeah, I wondered if that was a reference to something.
Well, thank goodness for Google.
Oh,
Mordillo, or however you say it, was a Shang-Chi villain, and Brynaki was his robot servant, slave, or whatever. And even after Mordillo died, Brynaki kept trying to serve him and attack Shang-Chi.
Oh, okay.
At one point, he also fought Moon Knight and Rom.
Slott has a good way of grabbing some of these things that I've never even heard of and making them at least a very important part of the story he's telling now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because I had no idea. I mean, that's a deep dive into
It is. It really is. So these two guys, along with Locke and Chamber. So Locke and Chamber are there as well, which they just seem, I don't know much about these guys, but they seem like two assassins that are helping him out.
Yeah, they're kind of Arcade's right-hand man and woman. They're his top hinge people.
Here we are on Murderland, Arcade's Murderland. It's like a theme park. According to Arcade, he says there is a spot on this island. Everybody has to get to this spot. If one person steps in there, they win the game. If nobody else gets into that spot, I think within 10 seconds, then anybody outside of that spot loses. So it's like kind of like an immunity thing. You can step in there, and as long as everybody else gets in there within 10 seconds, whoever gets in there within that time is considered a winner, which I assume would be, okay, you're not going to die and you can get out of here.
Right.
But yeah, so the game is on. We get treated to the thing, going through some of these trials. I mean, there's a point where he has to fight a bunch of, in the Marvel version of this theme park, there's a bunch of heroes that are robots that come after him. I think I saw the Nova in there. So Wolverine is in that. Are in those robots there. But anyway, he goes through those no problem. And then all of a sudden, here comes a bunch of versions of the Hulk after him. And that really cranks things up, because you could tell, like, at the end of that issue, Ben's winded. He's trying to protect all these people. And, after his battle with this one robot, I think it was one robot Hulk, then the other ones show up, which are interesting versions, to say the least, considering I wonder how Arcade knows much about what was that version of the Hulk from the Future Imperfect Hulk? The Maestro. I was like, how does he know? But anyway, of course, our hero is going to make it through. Although there's some tension between him and Carlotta, who I think at some point tries to make a play to get away. Like Arcade knows that these two are a thing. I mean, this is called the Idol of Millions, right? That's the name of this book.
Well, and also that's the Thing's self-proclaimed nickname that he gave himself years ago.
Okay. Now, these two are a hot couple, your Benifer or what have you. So the papers have been paying attention. Trust me, Arcade is as well. So Arcade kind of throws a little wrench into the game here by telling Carlotta, hey, look, I know who you are. Do you want out? I'll give you the option to get out of here. Here's all you have to do. And he gets her in. It gives her like access to some kind of
hovercraft.
There you go. I'll go with that.
Flying thing, but hovercraft sounds
better. So he gives her access to this hovercraft. She's like, I'm out of here. I'm sorry. I've got to go. And Ben's like, what the hell? So at that point, of course, Constrictor steps in, uses his power, which I don't know much about this guy other than the fact what we see in here. He's got tentacles that come out of his arms. Mm-hmm. I assume he has some type of super strength too. He's able to stop her from getting away. Ben gets a bright idea after they find the spot that is the immunity zone. He piles everybody into this hovercraft, grabs the hovercraft, and because this immunity zone is only 5 feet wide, the problem is solved by Ben grabbing this thing, holding it above his head with all these people in it, and him stepping into the immunity zone, and supposedly that's the end of the game. Now, of course, Arcade's like, I don't think so. I'm going to kill you all anyway. As luck would have it, Tony Stark, who is Sans Iron Man suit, does not have the Iron Man suit in here, and he can't get the Iron Man suit for some reason. He is able to find his way into the underbelly of this park, reprogram some things, including Arcade's faithful little buddy, Bernanke. Bernanke is like some kind of, as he's reprogrammed, he's like a mini version of Iron Man. Comes in there, and they both put the game to an end. Throughout all this, I just kind of want to throw this out there. Alicia Masters is trying to find what happened to the Thing and all these people when they disappeared. So she's kind of working, I think, with Daredevil.
Can I throw in a little something about Constrictor?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with him either. He seemed to me, not that familiar. He seemed to me to be just one of those go-to villains. I know...
he's got to be a member of the Serpent Society.
Yeah, somehow. And he was in... I don't know if it was Joe Kelly or Christopher Priest. I think he was Deadpool's roommate for a while. But Slott actually picked him up from here and used him in the Initiative. Post-Civil War, he wrote like the first 12 issues of the Initiative, and Constrictor was kind of like one of the instructors for the young heroes there, and trying to reform. So Slott picked him up and carried him into another title.
Again, another way of using these deep cuts to keep us entertained. So Alicia Masters helps them find the island and get everybody off of there. After the Thing saves everybody on there, the next step is getting them off of there, and Alicia Masters steps in and helps out while she was hanging out with Daredevil and doing some investigating. Now, one of the key things that we take away from this is the very end, which I think is the best part of this whole story. I mean, yes, we got some great clobbering time going on here. But when Daredevil brings Alicia a present, and I don't know if it's because her birthday's coming up or whatever, but anyway, he brings her a present, and he asks her about her feelings for Ben. And she's like, no, that's all in the past. And he says, thank you. That's enough. That's all I need to know. And then as he's going away, or as he's swinging away, he said, in his mind, you see the thought bubble to know that you're lying. So right there, we're sowing those seeds that she definitely still has feelings for Ben Grimm. I'm stepping back here. Evan. What do you think of this first story arc?
Well, I mean, you got a lot of classic thing, a lot of humor. He's not getting taken seriously by some of these rich folks, and that was a cool kind of dichotomy, the way they played that. The Thing was kind of fish out of water in their world. Now all of a sudden they're in the superhero supervillain world, and he says, okay, you guys got to listen to me now.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, he's with Stark not having the Iron Man armor. I mean, he's top superhero dog, and still no respect.
Yeah. His interaction with Carlotta was, I don't know, it's kind of a neat way to see how Dan Slott handles the character, because it's almost like Ben doesn't feel that even though he has all this money, he definitely doesn't feel like he fits in with that crowd.
Yeah. He kind of thinks that, and you kind of wonder about that as you're reading the story, that, she's with him for the money, for the profile, because she's a hot up and coming actress, but she's still kind of new on the scene. So he can't quite shake the feeling that, she's kind of using him. As the story goes on, there's nothing really to say she isn't.
Anything else you'd like to say about Fun and Games before we move on to pause and fast forward?
No, it was fun, and there were games.
Yeah, yes, sir, it was. All right, so pause and fast forward. Now, this was just a kind of a quick one-shot deal. We start out with Lockjaw of the Inhumans. Now, give our readers an idea of who Lockjaw is, because a lot of people may be thinking that I'm talking about an actual superhero person, but that's not the case here, right?
According to most interpretations, no.
Okay.
Lockjaw is back when the Inhumans show that didn't work out too well came on. I was telling everybody Lockjaw is going to be your favorite character, whatever else happens on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big, lovable dog who can teleport anywhere. I mean, I remember one Fantastic Four story where they were trapped in some far-flung part of the multiverse that no one could reach them, except Lockjaw. And now there is an infamous Marvel story back in the Thing's post-Marvel 2-in-1 solo series where John Byrne revealed that Lockjaw was an actual humanoid Inhuman who got transformed and disfigured into a dog-like shape by the Terrigen Mist.
Oh my goodness. So he was originally a person, and then when the mutation happened,
according to Byrne's story, and then years later, in almost a throwaway line in an issue of X Factor, Peter David wrote, Multiple Man was talking to Quicksilver, and he said, and so Lockjaw, he's like one of the Inhumans, right? He's not just a dog. And Quicksilver goes, oh, that was just a prank that Karnak and Gorgon pulled on that idiot Grimm.
Oh no. Okay, so
and
so they rewrote that.
Yeah. So and Peter David's actually said he wrote it that way because it sounds like a really terrible joke, and Gorgon and Karnak I don't really think of them as pranksters. So he said that his intention was, if you liked that reveal, then fine, Lockjaw's a disfigured Inhuman. If you thought that was kind of creepy and meant the Inhumans were horrible for treating him like a dog in virtually every other story, then you could forget about it.
Oh, yeah, that really puts a horrible spin on it because, well, see,
I think it's firmly established that Lockjaw is a dog. All due respect to the great John Byrne. That issue 4 where they bring Lockjaw in, that to me kind of showed how I don't think Slott ever intended for this to only be 8 issues. I think probably sales dictated that because, I mean, he's building a real nice supporting cast here with Alicia, you got Lockjaw,
Well, and like I mentioned earlier, the Civil War is right around the corner here. Now, I'm sure you would know more about this than I do, but my assumption is that editorial is going to know most likely any events that they have ready at least 6 months in advance.
Sure.
That would be my assumption. So, as Civil War is just about to happen, this series ends. So pause and fast forward. Poor Lockjaw, hanging out with the Inhumans, unfortunately is in the same room as Karnak is when Karnak decides he's just gonna like destroy this piece of stone. And when he does this, it flings this shard into Lockjaw's face, pretty much, and it's stuck there. Lockjaw can't do anything to get it out. And it's so funny because he teleports all over the place trying to get this thing out. And I think my favorite moment of this book, or this story, is when he pops in front of the Watcher, and he's just, he's howling, trying to get somebody to at least look at him and pull this thing out. And the Watcher knows all, and he sees that thing sticking out of his face, and he says, I understand. He's like, I understand your pain. However, I can only watch. He doesn't do anything to pull it out.
That's the oath I read in every issue just about of What If, and I'm like, man, that's the Watcher sticking to his guns.
Oh goodness. Now, granted, if you want to take a look at it in a more serious note, maybe the Watcher knew that Lockjaw was going to play an important part in Ben Grimm's life and could not interfere in doing so. So there we go.
I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, you might be onto something there.
Yeah. So okay. All right. So anyway, Lockjaw finally teleports to the Baxter building. I can't even remember if he goes through a couple of I think he tries to go through a couple of the Fantastic Four, but right. the thing understands. The thing looks at him and says, "Oh, come here, man. Come here. Let me see." And he pulls that thing right out. And right then and there, Ben Grimm has made a friend for life. Lockjaw is his buddy. There really isn't a whole lot that happens in this issue other than I think Reed wants to get Ben out of the house with the kids. He believes that Ben needs to go spend some time with the kids, maybe come back down to earth a little bit. He's living the high life. I don't know how many times we've seen Ben Grimm in his mansion, getting falling asleep in his big fluffy bed, and he's very aware and cognizant of what his life is compared to what it was prior. He's living in the lap of luxury now with all this money. The Thing is trying to find something to do with the kids, and what they decide to do. What thing Ben Grimm decides to do is a good time. He's trying to impress Franklin. Franklin seems to be down in the dumps a little bit here. So they decide to go to the horse track.
Where else would you take a couple of young kids?
That's my first destination. Chuck E. Cheese? No. Horse track? Yes, sir. Let's go. And of course, hijinks ensue when a villain, which this has got to be a new villain. There's no way. If this is a villain that's been around, I'm going to be surprised. A villain by the name of Shock Jock. Yes, Shock Jock shows up at a horse track. Here we have, I think he's robbing and taking all the money from all the bettings that are going on here at the horse track. And of course, Ben Grimm steps in, and we have a knockdown drag out. And luckily, Lockjaw returns the favor and helps the Thing defeat him. So at the end of the story, Ben's trying to talk to Franklin to find out, what's going on. Why are you so down? And Franklin, out of the mouths of babes, as they say, is able to actually make Ben realize that his money really doesn't mean anything, but it's definitely your family that is the most important. Lockjaw gets granted, I guess, to stick around with the Thing at the end of this issue. The Inhumans say, "Hey, why don't he'd like to stay on Earth with you?" And Ben Grimm's like, "Okay, great." So there you go. Not really a whole lot that happens other than Ben Grimm and Lockjaw become buddies, and Franklin kind of brings Ben down to earth in regards to the whole money situation.
I mean, I love Lockjaw. A lot of times, and it's almost cliche to say it, but comics get so dark. And this is just, hey, this is a fun issue,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it still advances that story. Although in hindsight, it's kind of funny that Mr. Fantastic is the one that kind of put Franklin up to putting that bug in Ben's ear, because being able to relate well to others is not Reed's defining characteristic.
That's the truth.
But I mean, it's hard to complain about that, because there's some cool scenes, just some dialogue downtime with the Fantastic Four in there that I thought, that bodes well for the series. I mean, Dan Slott can write them comfortably in between adventures, which is that's half the appeal of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
I mean, they go on all these cool adventures, but they also get on each other's nerves and are a family. So.
Exactly. There's a lot to say about the family dynamic that happens in the Fantastic Four, and Ben Grimm is one of those four parts. It's, I agree. It's important to keep him grounded and involved with the rest of the family. So, all right. So that's pause and fast forward. Anything else before we go to what I think is called Give Till It Hurts?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Okay. Now this is a 2-issue arc that occurs when He's reminded by a former Yancey Street shop owner by the name of Shecky. Now that's what Ben calls him. I can't remember what his actual name is.
I had that somewhere, but yeah, Shecky's all I remember.
Okay, you if you come across it, you just yell it out. But so Shecky is like, hey, listen, you need to come back to the neighborhood, and you need to pay off the debt that you owe me. And Ben's like, whoa, wait a second now, come on. I have all this money. Here's a check for $100,000, old man. Leave me alone. All right, my debt's paid. And this guy's like, nope. Takes his check and rips it up right in front of him. You owe me a debt. You need to come by the shop tomorrow or Sunday, and you need to work this debt off. Ben reluctantly agrees, shows up. As he's doing this, he gets the bright idea. He's going to build what I would liken to a YMCA. It's a boys club or whatever, something to keep the Yancey Street youths busy. Instead of spray painting and tagging places, breaking windows, maybe they can go into this place and work off their aggression. Now, this is where we get one of the other important pieces of the story, where we meet a guy by the name of Arlo, who happens to be Alicia's new boyfriend. Now, Arlo is this contractor who Ben contacts about and puts him to work to build this YMCA. Now, throughout this issue 5, at least, he does not know that Alicia and Arlo are involved. So we got that bit of tension there that's kind of going, where we don't really know if how Ben's going to react if he finds out about this.
Like this classic sitcom setup.
That's right. So, of course, during the construction of this new YMCA, the Grim YMCA, whatever he calls it, it's definitely got his name on the building.
Everybody hold hands as we cross the pronunciation bridge.
The Magia or Magi?
Magia?
I'll go with Magia.
I always call it Magia. I think it's actually a take on the Mafia, so it might be the Magia.
Magia. I like that. We'll go with I'm going to go with Magia. You pronounce it however you want. We've crossed the pronunciation bridge together. We're fine with each other's pronunciations.
Who's the guy that gave Luke Cage his powers again?
Bernstein.
Okay, Dr. Bernstein. So Dr. Bernstein.
Bernstein's. Dr. Bernstein. Dr. Bondstone.
Dr. Oppenheimer.
I cannot remember his name. But, okay, so Magia. Okay, we're going with Magia. So anyway, the Magia shows up. And they're like, hey, you got to grease the palms here, Ben. You got to grease the Magia palms or you're going to have trouble. You're not exactly, we want in on this construction job. Well, that doesn't fly with Ben Grimm. Not the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. So we have, he wipes the floor with these guys. And of course, they're like, you ain't heard the last of us. Sure enough, by the end of this episode, the end of this issue, the villain's Paste Pot Pete, or the Trapster, I think he goes by nowadays, and Ben's former friend, which we found out earlier in a few issues, turned unreformed villain, Sandman, show up to kind of exercise the Magia's rights to work on this building all over Ben Grimm's face. As that's happening, I think Ben's like trapped in Paste Pot Pete's glue. Yeah. And he sends a signal up to try and get his Fantastic Four friends to come in and help out. And no one is around to see the signal. They're all off doing their own thing.
I believe Johnny's saving Beyonce from Dragon Man.
Well, luckily, a former member of the Fantastic Four, the new Fantastic Four, if you will, Spider-Man, and he's actually got the Iron Spider armor here, shows up to help out. I want you to do our listeners a favor and kind of give them an idea who the new Fantastic Four was.
One of my all-time favorite comic runs. A Skrull fugitive goes into, I don't think it was the Baxter building at that point. That was during the Four Freedoms Plaza years.
Okay.
This Skrull fugitive goes in and, using her shape-shifting abilities, defeats the Fantastic Four one by one. And she's looking for a particular artifact, and so she decides to get some help, and she calls in Spider-Man, the Hulk, and that's Joe Fixit, Las Vegas leg breaker Grey Hulk, Ghost Rider, and Wolverine, and tells them that she appears as Sue Richards, and tells them that her family, the Fantastic Four, has been killed, and sends them off to look for this thing. I think I remember them saying it was supposed to be kind of a parody on some of the the 90s excess with especially with Wolverine and Ghost Rider. Man, people who weren't reading Marvel in the 90s don't know how big Ghost Rider used to be.
Oh, yeah, dude. No kidding.
And so it was supposed to be a parody, but the thing is everybody loved it. And they brought him back like a year or two later. There's been all kinds of what ifs and spinoffs with the new Fantastic Four. And it may have been supposed to be a joke, but I mean, people just absolutely loved the new Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Is this one of the names I'm tying to that is Mike Waringo?
He did a what if with them I think he finished most of the art on it right before he passed away. So they kind of released that as a tribute to him. It was actually, and I'm blanking, I feel terrible, I can't remember the writer's name, but Art Adams, who's just one of my all-time favorite artists. Art Adams did the art for that run.
Walt Simonson?
Yeah, it was around the Simonson years.
Okay, all right, because I have New Fantastic Four, Earth 616. It has creators as Walt Simonson, Arthur Adams.
Yep, that's it. Okay, yeah, Walt Simonson.
Okay, and that's a writer I don't think we've covered yet on this show. I know when we did our Thor episode, Pat was very, he's like, man, you need to. It was Simonson did a bunch of Thor, right?
Yeah, he did. He introduced Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah.
And he was actually the namesake when they made Frog Thor his own character. His secret identity is Simon Walterson.
Okay. A last sentence on this wiki, by the way. The team briefly regrouped with Sleepwalker instead of Wolverine to fight the reformed Sinister Six. I know you've seen that Sleepwalker's coming back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm certain that piece of news wouldn't have gone under your radar anyway.
No. That means that I will have new issues to add. I've got every issue of the Sleepwalker series, and he actually on my list of back issues to look for. He popped up in what they called the last Fantastic Four story when the series originally ended, right before Secret Wars.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay. Very cool. I haven't heard anything from this guy, and jeez, man. I remember, I know I have the first issue of I don't know if it was the first issue. It might have been like the third. But either way, I have like a couple issues from his run. What was that? That was the 90s, right?
Oh, yeah.
Early 90s. So, yeah, I don't think I've read anything with him in it at all since then.
Last time, I think he popped up in an issue of Superior Spider-Man Team Up.
Okay.
And then he also had the brief cameo. You'll notice a theme here in a recent glorious blast of C-list cameos in an issue of Squirrel Girl not too long.
Ah, nice. Very nice. Spider-Man shows up, Iron Spider armor, Paste Pot Pete, the Trapster, I should say, and Sandman. They're going to blow things up. So they've got bombs all over the place. The focus then at that point is that we need to get the bombs out of there because Spider-Man's able to help Ben take care of the villains pretty easily. I mean, I'd say the Thing had his hands full with the Sandman, but they're able to overcome them. But the next thing is they've got to get the bombs out of there. And one of the things that stuck out to me was that Lost was huge at that point. Oh, yeah. And the numbers to take these, turn these bombs off were the numbers from Lost.
Of course, Ben Grimm didn't watch that beautiful moment. The Trapster's going, "Come on, it's the highest rated show in the country. How do you not know this?
How do you not know?" So Ben can't. His big old thing fingers cannot hit this code in. So he does what any ever loving blue eyed thing would do, and that's lay the bomb down on the ground and lay on top of it. So he takes the brunt of the damage, but Damage Control comes in. Damage Control, I haven't seen them in a while. I don't know if they were very prominent in 2006 or not, but again, another throwback to the early 90s for me.
Damage Control had another really odd role in Civil War, actually. Okay, the precipitating event in Civil War was when Nitro exploded while fighting the New Warriors. Well, they revealed, I think the guy's name was Warren Declan or Warren Declan, something like that. He was the CEO of Damage Control, and he had actually been souping up villains' powers powers to drum up business for damage control.
Oh,
and
nice.
he had given whatever he was using, I don't know if it was mutant growth hormone, he had provided that to Nitro. So he made the bad situation even worse. And that was, I think that was Wolverine's main arc in Civil War, was Wolverine went after that guy.
Yeah, he went after Nitro. Trust me. That's the... I have posted and reposted that picture where Wolverine I think he gets blown up because he's in a plane. The plane crashes, or maybe it's Nitro that blows him up. I can't remember, but I just know that he goes down to a damn bear skeleton. There's nothing left, and then he regenerates. I'm like, okay, we can't jump the shark anymore with Wolverine other than that right there.
Yep.
Okay, so damage control comes in for the cleanup. Arlo, throughout this whole arc, has been trying to tell Ben about him and Alicia, and he finally does. Ben takes it on the chin like a good man should. Even though he wants to be suspicious of this guy, he wants this guy to be dirty. He wants him to have some kind of a reason. He wants to have some kind of a reason to have a justifiable doubt that Arlo is dirty and not good enough for Alicia. And then at the end, after all this grief that the Yancey Streeters, including Shecky, have been giving him about this building, there are some Yancey Street gang members who, boy, you talk about no respect. They definitely do not respect the thing. But
they changed their tune a little bit at the end.
Yes, they do, because they're just about to vandalize this building when they, one of the other guys stops them and says, "Look, take a look at this," and you see down there that this building is not named after Ben Grimm himself. It's named after his brother, Danny, right?
Right, yeah, one of the original Yancey Street gang leaders.
Yes. Yeah, they soften up on old Ben Grimm a little bit, other than, at the end when Ben Grimm, who unfortunately loses his teleporting dog, has to walk home yet again, falls asleep on a bench. Our gang members decide to show old Ben Grimm some respect, Yancey Street style, and tag him all up with the graffiti. So,
again, the ending is just quintessential Ben Grimm. He's got the line, "I'm the man of the hour, the happiest guy in the world, and the most miserable freaking jerk alive." Because he knows he's not getting back with Alicia. And I love the part where he gets Peter Parker to walk by him a few times to see if the spider sense sets off.
He's giving him a hard time about the number of legs that come out of his back on the Spider-Man armor. He's like, "Why do you have 3? That makes it look like you can't count."
And then another great line that it kind of gives you a different perspective on Spider-Man, because a lot of times we're reading from Spider-Man's perspective, and like we hear people don't like him, but we know what kind of guy Peter Parker is. But the part where Spider-Man shows up and Trapster and Sandman are like, "Oh no, not this guy," and even the things like, "Guys, I'm sorry, I had no idea he'd be the one to show up."
Yeah.
And then you also got to give credit the cover to issue 6 with Spider-Man in his trademark Spider-Man upside down dangling on the web pose, and the Thing trying to recreate it. I mean, that's probably the best cover of some really good covers in this run.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll get to the second last story of this book. This man, this monster, disarmed. So Ben takes Alicia out for a birthday surprise. So, it was mentioned, I think, earlier that, he was going to take her out for her birthday. Of course, just as friends. At least that's the intention. So he's kind of at a point where he can't figure out where to take Alicia, and everything that he thinks of, she ends up kind of saying something that makes him go, "Okay, this isn't good enough," and he changes his mind real quick and has old Lockjaw teleport him to somewhere else. They start out in Paris, then they go back to New York. So finally, Ben decides on taking her back to ancient Greece by using the Fantastic Four's time travel device.
Sounds like a perfectly reasonable use for that.
I love how he walks in and he's got Alicia, he has her by the hand. He walks into that room and there's like 4 humongous signs that do not want Ben in this room. It says, "Stay out, Ben. This is not a toy. This is not, you can't use it." Well, of course, Ben Grimm's looking to entertain his lady. And so, yes, the idea is to take her back to, I think, ancient Greece and let her check out, what are they called? Statues. Thank you. The statues.
He was looking for the Venus de Milo.
And she was actually bragging about how, or they would let her touch it in one of the museums. Well, he was going to take her back to the original real deal and let her check that out. Well, unfortunately, they run into Hercules. Tell our listeners about Hercules and who this guy is.
Well, Hercules, I mean, it is the Hercules of legend and myth. He was one of the earliest new recruits to the Avengers, actually, back in the olden days.
Okay.
So yeah, he's been a long time Avenger, known for being a bit of a hothead. Also known for once out drinking Galactus.
Jeez.
But if you notice, in issue 6, you were talking about damage control. Hercules is there working for them, and it seemed like this odd cameo. Like why would you have Hercules in there?
Good
but
point.
He says, Ben Grimm, even though you remind me of a troll I once fought in my youth, I've always considered you a good friend.
Holy crap. I totally missed that. Wow.
And so here we have Hercules in his youth and sees what he believes to be a troll accosting a lovely young woman.
And cue the hero battle as Hercules decides to step in, and we have a bit of a Donnybrook as they fight each other. And geez Louise, man, things, of course, as all the villagers are running to see this, one of them is the creator of the Venus de Milo. And as Alicia's she runs into this artist who created the statue. And what was it, like maybe not even a page later, Hercules sends the thing flying through the air, and the thing lands in all the statues. Ergo, the disarmed part of this title, where unfortunately the Venus de Milo suffers a catastrophic amputation to the arms of the statue. But yes, that's right. As they fight, of course, the heroes come to an understanding. I think Alicia steps in and says, "You guys, cut it out." Hercules is like, "Oh, I didn't know," and he leaves. I think the biggest message comes near the end of this, where Ben has been told throughout. I think there's a couple issues where he said, "Don't give up on Alicia." Somebody has said to him, "Don't give up on her. If you are in love with her, do your best to try and win her over." Here he makes his move. And as he's talking to her, one of the things that I took away from it is where he explains that, and I have it written down here. She's like, "Look, it'll never work. It will not work." And he says, "Look, some of the greatest works of art have cracks. And that's what makes their relationship a classic." And then at the end of this, you have this very real sense that they're going to get back together because she is kind of accepting of that. She understands where Ben's coming from, and she believes that, or at least at the end of this, that they're going to be together in some way, or at least they should give it a shot.
It's funny how you remember things, because I remember reading this before, and as I was pulling these issues out, I look at them like, oh yeah, number 7, that's that kind of fill-in issue where he goes back in time and fights Hercules. Didn't really think much of it. I go back and read it, I'm laughing out loud the whole time. I mean, there's, you've got the hero battle, and Alicia knows what's coming, and she's like, okay, and he's about to say it's clobbering time, and of course he does, and all the people are like, oh my goodness, she's a blind oracle, and she's just like, no, I've just been through this a lot, but they all think she's psychic, prophetic, whatever, and classic sitcom setup, the guy trying to outdo he's in the friend zone, but he's trying to outdo the boyfriend for the birthday gift.
Yep.
With this sci-fi time travel twist, and again, it's when all the comics are so dark. This is just absolute fun.
That's right.
But it's a solid story too.
There's definitely a place for these types of stories out there, and because a lot of people that I've talked to, I know that some of the comics that they enjoy are the more lighthearted ones. We're about to get to this next issue that we get into, have a frequent guest on the podcast. His name's Josh Calandras, huge fan of some of the lighter side of Marvel superheroes. Howard the Duck, Squirrel Girl, Great Lakes Avengers, X-Men, Defenders, whatever.
Champions, X-Men.
Yeah.
Lightning rods.
So, there a lot of people enjoy those stories. I have found that I kind of gravitate towards those too, because you can only take so much. I mean, we mentioned 90s. We mentioned 90s comics, and they tend to be extreme and brutal, and I've had my fill of that. I like stuff that's, like I said, we're getting ready to get into at the end of this series is probably one of the most serious Marvel events I think I had ever had the chance to read. Secret Wars is up. Secret Wars is good, but it's really delved a lot in, I would say, the cosmic and fantasy elements. This Civil War, one of the more grounded events in Marvel's history. So anyway, these types of stories definitely have their place. But I think, again, we're one of the big parts of this particular arc is that we're furthering and maybe coming to a resolution of Alicia and Ben's relationship troubles. At least, I think that's kind of what we're getting to. So let's get into Last Hand, unless you have anything else to go here. Unless you have anything else to say.
No. That's Last Hand is the one that cover you can buy as a T-shirt at Walmart still.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
I think I've seen that. I wondered why I turned to that issue and I was like, wait a second, that looks very familiar. Let's have a poker tournament and invite all the Marvel superheroes.
And the Things poker game, that's been like an ongoing thing in Marvel, an ongoing thing. See what I did there?
Wow, nice.
I did, totally accidental. But that's been going on for a while. I mean, I know Paul Jenkins, I can't remember, I think it was a few years before this, did an issue in Amazing Spider-Man, or Peter Parker Spider-Man, focusing on that. If I remember correctly, the Last Hand came down to Spider-Man and the Kingpin. But the Things poker game has always been a kind of an ongoing subplot.
I did not know that. Well, that's interesting. So this is where Dan Slott's like, all right, it's time to bring everybody in. We're going to have a tournament. And I know that Texas Hold'em. This is 2006. I think Texas Hold'em is about to really start exploding on the scene. Now, poker's been around for a lot longer than that, but yeah, so it's superhero poker tournament time. This just kind of sets the settings for some previous backstories to kind of show up here. I think the first story, I mean, listen, I'll just go ahead and let you retell it if you like, if you can remember it. This story about Squirrel Girl.
Oh yeah. Well, see, and this is another one where Slott's taken characters he's written before, because he brought the Great Lakes Avengers and Squirrel Girl back into the spotlight. Because I'm not sure that Squirrel Girl had ever appeared outside of her first appearance until, I could be wrong, but she hadn't been around in a while. And then Dan Slott wrote GLA, which was Great Lakes Avengers, but had to be a bit of a poke at DC's flagship team.
Yeah.
And they kept looking for new members, and Squirrel Girl comes in and she raises the bar of someone that you don't think could actually be a superhero, except unlike the rest of the GLA, she's really good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, at the end of that, they had found out that most, if not all of them, were mutants. So they changed their name to the Great Lakes X-Men. And so yeah, they have the flashback here with Squirrel Girl and Thing taking on the Bi-Beast.
Bi-Beast.
Yeah.
Another villain that just looks just weird.
Oh yeah. And you got the two heads and one skull, and I won't make this about Squirrel Girl, but I mean, Ryan North that writes the Squirrel Girl ongoing series has defined her, but Slott, I mean, hits all the characteristics here, that she's friendly, she's chipper, you kind of underestimate her, and then boom, she's the one that saves the day.
Yeah,
and gets the Great Lakes X-Men, as they were invited to the tournament.
Yeah, they don't get invited to the tournament. She kind of brings them in as because she saved the Thing's hide, but by helping him defeat the Bi-Beast with stinky New York trash, ladies and gentlemen. And she relied on the fact that the Bi-Beast has two noses. I'll let you read it because it's a great way of defeating a supervillain. But yes, so the Great Lakes Avengers, GLX, what have you, are there along with Squirrel Girl at the tournament. And then we kind of pop back to another previous battle, I guess you would say, the Thing had with the Impossible Man. He really didn't fight him. The Impossible Man had a horrible case of the pop-ups. Which,
as you do.
Tell us about the Impossible Man.
He's been around the Fantastic Four for a long time. He's like the friend that won't leave and can't tell he's overstayed his welcome. He comes and just wants to have fun, but ends up causing trouble. With the pop-ups, we've got the thing trying to help him. The Impossible Man can't stop changing shape. So he's a bull. He's Thor's hammer. He becomes a bomb, and the thing, reasoning that the pop-ups are kind of like the hiccups, plays dead and then scares him half to death to cure him.
Problem solved.
There you go. Who says Mr. Fantastic is the brains of the outfit?
That's right. Now, in the process of this whole battle, this happened like in a Himalayan village, and they destroy this village. These unfortunate villagers have no place to stay. So the thing it decides, well, you know what? This is a good job for that contractor that helped me build the YMCA I'm going to talk to Arlo. So he calls Arlo, and this is the only time that I think in this story, and you can chime in here, but things felt rushed here because it seems like everything's coming together. Go ahead.
I think Slott had plans for more than 8 issues for this. Because, you've been building this relationship with Arlo and Alicia and the comedy and the tension, and then in 2 panels, he's out the door.
Yeah, he's gone. It's like, all right, I'll see you later.
Your feelings for Ben. It'll be great. I trust you. Whatever.
And Alicia doesn't waste time. I know there's some time that's passed in between these stories that we're having here, and as he's kind of going through the flashbacks, but Alicia's back on his arm, giving him a kiss in this poker tournament. And I was like, okay, well, for as drawn out as their story was, this was very much an ending to that whole chapter that was very quick, in my opinion. So, but yes,
I think if unless I don't know if it was the sales or the fact that they were bringing a new creative team on Fantastic Four, I think around that time, or maybe just because of Civil War, I don't know. But as far as a story perspective, this could have gone on a lot longer. It felt like
it definitely could have.
Shecky, Alicia, Arlo, Lockjaw, you had this great supporting cast they were building that had been very much a part of the Fantastic Four, but also his own man.
Yeah. And speaking of Shecky and Ben get together, and we find out that through some religious loophole. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong here. I assume that Shecky is he Jewish?
Yeah, and Ben is, which was something that was. I looked this up because I was thinking Shecky was a Dan Slott creation, but Carl Kessel actually introduced him, and the fact that Ben was Jewish and owed Shecky a debt, and then Dan Slott kind of picked up those threads. Nothing had been done with it since then.
So through a religious, I'm going to call it a loophole. I mean, they're able to get Ben Grimm to celebrate something that he was never able to in his younger years, and that's his bar mitzvah. So
their reasoning was it was 13 years since he became the Thing, so it was like a second 13th birthday.
There we go. So that's the big reason we're having the poker party tonight. It's the celebration after the big bar mitzvah had occurred. So all these 3 things, which, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, these may have been stories that were planned to be drawn out over more issues. You probably got a good point there, that it just seemed like we were developing all this, and Slott's like, okay, well, I have these things ready to go. I'm just going to kind of shove them into like 2-page story arcs, 2 or 3-page story arcs in the last issue. I think he did a good job. I mean, this is pretty, it's still passable in my opinion for this story. But anyway, okay. So we're down to the last hand at the poker party. This is one of those instances where I thought I knew what was going on, and then things kind of turned, where Ben was bragging about, hey, it's just me and you now, and it sure does. He says something along the lines of like, this is kind of fate between me and you, Stretcho. And I was like, oh, it's him and Reed. They're down to the last table, the last hand, and they're Ben's all in, and he shows, and he's like, he goes, boy, this is something else. Turns his hand over, and here it is. He's got 4 4s in his hand, but as we find out, that his adversary on the other side of the table is not Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. No, it is indeed Flatman, correct?
Yes, from the Great Lakes X-Men at that point.
And he has a straight flush, and he is able to beat Ben Grimm at his own poker party and take home the winnings. There we go. That is pretty much, I think, near the best summary of what happened in Last Hand. Other than the fact that clearly Alicia's got different plans for him, and Ben gets the rest of the heroes out of there as quick as he can. So she's going to make it
gets the last word for the issue and the series going, is that it?
And then down there, right at the end, is I believe Dan Slott saying, yes, it is.
Yep.
See you later. So yeah, man, give us your final thoughts of the issue itself, story as the book as a whole. What
I mean, yeah, you had especially the thing with Arlo and Alicia. It was rushed. That's what I mean. As much absolute fun as this issue was, it's kind of bittersweet because you're like, man, there was so much there, and it's not a lesser comic. It's just not as serious, but there's still a story there, and you need some light. So some people might look down on it, but I mean that's one of my favorite runs. That's one of my favorite story arcs. You just nail everything that makes the thing great. Things kind of do work out for him there. I mean, laugh out loud funny the whole time, but still with a serious story. And I mean, if you're the last 10 years of Spider-Man should have already told you, but if you're not sure if Dan Slott can do the Fantastic Four justice, I mean, there you go. He's got my favorite member of the team nailed right there.
12 years prior. I mean, this is 2006 we're talking about here. So he's got a good sense of what this character is with the Thing, and he did a good job writing the other characters when they popped up throughout the series. So
I just wish it had been more than 8 issues. Yeah. I mean, there was lots of potential there. It wasn't. I mean, Marvel's got some lighthearted stuff these days. It was different from a lot of what you had going out on then. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't in the cards. Didn't find a place. Yeah, there you go.
Evan, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and spending. We're going into 2 hours now, talking about the Thing and the first family of Marvel here. So let's go ahead. We'll plug things and we'll get out of here. What do you have to plug, sir? Because I know you have a comic. So
the webcomic support group, which we're kind of relaunching on Webtoons. It's a free webcomic website. So webtoons.com, search for support group. We just we reposted the first issue, and if everything goes according to plan, then August 21st, we should be putting up the first couple of pages from the second issue.
Okay. Now, you do the writing for that, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have an artist who goes by the name of
Nathan Arnold, who does a fantastic job of coming up with these, of fleshing out these characters. My gifts definitely lie more toward the writing, and he takes these characters and just brings them to life in ways I didn't imagine. Well, I also write, if you're in West Virginia, Graffiti, statewide entertainment magazine, and you can usually find me writing a column about comics in there.
Okay.
Most months. And I write a column called Back Issues for the Parkersburg News and Sentinel to kind of let people know where all the folks that are filling up their TV and movie screens came from.
Oh, good. Some people need that education. Believe you me. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can go give the Rattlich in Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that our network has to offer. Obviously, right here, you have source material where we're coming up on, I believe we may be hitting 180 episodes, if not with this episode or shortly thereafter, 180. So we'll be celebrating our 4-year anniversary, I believe, coming up here next month in September. So there's also other content. We have podcasts usually revolving around movies, TV shows, Sunday night, 411 Ground and Pound, where you can, MMA Ground and Pound, where you can listen to Robert Winfrey talk about all the MMA news that we have out there. Music, metal music. I also am the 2nd/3rd chair on the Metal Hammer of Doom, where we weekly, at least try to weekly, review some of the more, we'll just say, some popular metal groups and their latest releases, and some of the not so popular. Recently, we did a review on a band, a Celtic metal band by the name of Kuhan, and it is the first. It is the first instance in which we did a review, and it turns out the lead singer from Ireland got in touch with us via YouTube. So we have an interesting story to tell about. So if you want to hear that, tune into that episode. We're at home on Spreaker.com, but we're also on Spotify. So one of the more popular music platforms out there also carry podcasts. You can just type in RADULICH, search, subscribe, or maybe just listen to us individually. Maybe you want to just listen to 1 or 2 episodes. Either way, we don't care. A listen's a listen. Ladies and gentlemen, first off, let me thank Evan Bevins. Thank you, Evan, for coming on here and talking Fantastic Four with me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we've definitely got to do this again sometime. I know we've got a couple characters and stories that we've already talked about that we want to talk about here. So that's got to happen sometime soon. You're a fantastic guest. So that's Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. This is Source Material. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
Our daughter's off to summer camp, and we're worried our network coverage won't reach her.
Don't worry. You got this with Total Wireless. Our phones run on the nation's best 4G LTE network. It'll be like she never left.
The nation's best network? I feel better already.
Now you can focus on how you're spending your summer.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Now open in Miami. Refer to the latest terms and conditions of service at TotalWireless.com.